Hei, he honore e kororea ki te atua mau ngā rongo ki te whenua whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Honour and glory to God, peace on heaven and earth, and goodwill to all humankind. Thank you for coming today. I just wanted to acknowledge Murray and his team, his kāhui kaimahi, for the excellent mahi that they are undertaking here at Whakamaru. Recently opened, but doing some amazing things to tautoko people in need, in genuine need, across the community here in Wellington and actually throughout the wider rohe. Murray, mihi ana ki a koe. Today I'm pleased to announce details of a new approach for supporting more people out of emergency housing into stable housing, stable whare. I'll shortly talk more specifically about how we as the government will advance this important objective. When the Coalition came into office, we set a priority to significantly reduce the numbers of people in emergency housing across Aotearoa New Zealand. Our concern as an incoming government was seeing the high numbers of whānau, couples and individuals, living for too long in motels. There were many families with tamariki who were essentially consigned to growing up in motels. And that had a high moral, social, financial and cultural cost for people living in that emergency housing arrangement. We have made it clear that we want to return emergency housing to its original intent as a last resort for people with genuine need for temporary accommodation. And this is so important, it's one of our key targets, key target number 8, that we are trying to reduce the number of households in emergency housing by 75% by 2030. And the pathway to achieving this has been set out in the Emergency Housing Target Delivery Plan. In March, April, we announced a Priority 1 kaupapa, which is with whānau with dependent children who have been in emergency housing for more than 12 weeks. Targeting families with tamariki has been a top priority for us to help graduate and move from emergency housing into a different space, into a better space. And as the Associate Minister of Housing, I'm absolutely committed to ensuring tamariki have the best opportunity to access warm, dry homes so they can focus on what is important, such as going to school, forging strong links with whānau and community. I'm pleased to say there has been progress, many of you know that, from 3,141 households in December 2023 in emergency housing to 1,179 at the end of September 2024, and the October numbers will be out shortly. While whānau with tamariki in emergency housing motels will continue to be an important priority, the government is also steadfastly committed to making sure that we can support other groups also to move out of emergency housing and into stable housing. That's why today I'm announcing the details of an emergency housing social outcomes contracting trial in Wellington and Hamilton, Potaka and Kirikiriroa, over the next 2 years. A provider, maybe more, in each location will work with single people and also couples without tamariki, a cohort that we are committed to supporting into more stable and sustainable housing. So Priority 1, whānau, especially single parents with tamariki. Now we're moving into something else, emergency housing social outcomes contracting. The Potaka Wellington provider is Wellington City Mission, and I thank Murray for inviting me here today and also to make this announcement. And the Kirikiriroa Hamilton provider is Emerge. Single people and couples without children can often face challenges in making the move from emergency housing. That's why we're taking this approach to help them move into more stable housing, which complements our commitment to moving whānau out of motels and into better, more stable housing. This is an outcomes-based approach. Providers like Murray here at Wellington City Mission will be given the flexibility to tailor specific solutions to ensure the best outcomes for their households. And the outcomes payments or incentives will be made when a provider has supported a person or a couple to sustain stable housing over 3, 6 and 13 months. The trial also has a bit of flexibility around the funding, where providers will tailor their approach and solutions to achieve the outcomes sought. So this tailoring is very important because for many of these people, past approaches have not worked and getting them into more stable housing. We want to focus on outcomes rather than prescribing how providers will deliver a service. The trial will be evaluated, and our team at Kura Tuapapa Kura Kāinga will be doing a learning by doing approach and also working with a social investment agency in an independent process evaluation and checking out whether or not things are working. Our government will continue to work with providers in the community to support Aotearoa New Zealanders to find more stable housing outcomes. Good progress has been made, and the commitment now is to not only focus on Priority 1, tamariki with whānau, but again to go towards singles and couples without tamariki and start helping them, especially if they've been longer than 12 months in emergency housing, to graduate and transition out of that into stable housing. Happy to take part.
How are you going to choose the 100 people that will be able to access it?
Well, first of all, we're really focused on Potaka here in Wellington and Kirikiriroa, and we've got a provider in each place, and we're working with others to see if other providers might come on. Second, that will be more in their space and for them to look out for and engage with singles and couples without tamariki that have been in emergency housing for longer than 12 months. There's actually a cohort that's very defined, many of whom have very, say, complex needs and have been in emergency housing for a long time.
How many people are in that cohort?
In that cohort, well, in different places, it's around, I'll tell you exactly the number, it's around just over 200 in each of the places in Hamilton, Kirikiriroa and Wellington. And as a result, we anticipate that Murray and the team here in Wellington and also the Emerge team in Hamilton, between them, they'll probably try and engage with it between 50 and 100 households, singles or couples without children, to progress this trial.
Do you have a number of the overall kind of that cohort who has been in emergency housing over a very long period of time, over the whole country?
Over the whole country, we have got those. I can get those details to you, but certainly we're starting to move, and you'll hear the October numbers soon, down towards 1,000 total households in emergency housing. What I can also add is that as we've prioritised whānau with tamariki, the percentages of the whānau with tamariki and emergency housing have gone down, and so the percentages of those that are singles and couples has sort of reset and gone higher. When we arrived, of course, it was about 45% singles without tamariki, 45% singles with tamariki. Now that's gone sort of 33-55.
Is it 2 years for that 50 to 100, or will you add
Yes.
more people?
Well, we'll start there for 2 years, 50 for 100, and it's a lot of this is sort of a trial period, so it's sort of trying to get some learning by doing and find out along the way what is going to work, especially for some singles and couples without tamariki that have been in for longer than 12 months and some up to a couple of years. And that's a cohort that we've found quite challenging for the government to engage with in a material way that we can help them transition into stable housing. And that's what the focus is really, is outcomes. It's in that stable housing.
In terms of the success, will it just be having that group of 100 in housing?
Well, I think that's for the trial, yes, but if it proves to be credible, if it proves to be successful, then we'll try and broaden the type of approach that we're using, which is outcomes contracting and based around incentive payments.
But is that the sole kind of measure of success, having people in permanent housing?
No, I don't think it is the sole measure of success. You can have people into permanent housing, but their well-being and lifting the well-being is also a secondary signal of success, whether or not this is working. And certainly our concern, one of our concerns continues to be the potential for people to drift back into emergency or to churn back into emergency. That's quite a concern that we've had for the last 12 months. If we are able to help people, ensure people aren't living in emergency, that they don't transition back into emergency housing, which is, as you know, in my view, very catastrophic for their own health and well-being, but it's also quite costly.
This is a sort of similar approach to, I guess, other policies like housing first. Would that be what you're trying to do here?
Sort of, but not quite, because there's no real financing of the built form, so we're not here to actually pay for the built form or the bricks and mortar around housing. This is more around the support that's required and needed for people to move into housing. And transitional, of course, is often more in the 12, 24 weeks. This is going to be incentivised over 3, 6, 13 months. So there are different types of triggers or signals or incentives that will be built into the commercial arrangements between the government and Murray here in Wellington City Mission and, of course, Emerge.
Will you be giving financial support to the Wellington City Mission and the Hamilton provider?
Well, there is a contractual arrangement that will be reached, and contractual arrangements have been reached with the Emerge and Wellington City Mission. That's why I'm lucky enough to be here today to make the announcement. And there will be, how I describe them, as incentive payments over and above the base contract arrangements.
Can you specify what that is?
I'm very careful to specify that because that's got some commercial sensitivity to it, but certainly our focus is around ensuring stability in housing, not just necessarily the provision of a service. So again, there's a little bit of a different approach. It's not attached to the built form, bricks and mortar, but incentivising the arrangement to ensure that Murray and Hope at Emerge and others are focused on that longer term outcome of people being in stable, secure homes.
Just on the priority one,
Yep.
You mentioned the numbers of people that have moved out of emergency
Sure.
housing and gone into social housing. Do you have numbers on other people who have left emergency housing that you don't know where they've gone?
Well, overall, and we've talked about this at length, and of course happy to answer more questions on the tiles or in the house when I get asked them, is that there's around 80% of all exiting households, we sort of know where they've gone to because of the nature of the support that we give them, and there's about 20% we don't, and there's reasons for that. And we started in the administration, we knew we were about 50% were going, now we know where there's about 80% going, and I think that's actually progress. And for some people, of course, in the 20%, they're not going to tell us where they are, and that's okay. We don't have any raru or problem with that.
Is that the sole reason that people aren't telling you, or
Well,
what other reasons?
well, I don't know what I don't know. But
So what are the reasons that you do know that you don't know?
Well, I do know that not everyone is required to tell us where they're going once they leave emergency housing. That's certainly the case. That will be the case for many, many whānau, but there might be others who have left emergency housing for other reasons and have gone elsewhere. Some might have gone overseas, for example.
Some providers, though, are concerned for that kind of undocumented homeless group. Are you doing any work to find out?
Well, the first thing is I think there's a genuine crisis in housing, not just in emergency housing, but across the entire bandwidth of housing. That there is a serious emergency out there, and especially in places where there is no real availability of emergency housing or even social housing. So if you go to say Te Tai Tokerau or Northland or Te Tai Rāwhiti, you haven't got the same level of provision of social or emergency housing, so people are living in very difficult conditions, as they are throughout the country. So I think the main thing is that we are progressing. It's blue shoots in many ways, but we've still got to stick at it, and I think at the latest count it was about 65, maybe 2/3 of people who were living in emergency housing when we've come in, they have now left emergency housing, and of that cohort, we know where most of the people have gone.
But in terms of that 20%, are you doing any work to find out where they are?
Well, no, we haven't really got a formal work program because we know that many people actually aren't going to tell us where they're going to. We do try and find out along the way. I think it's important for us just to recognise that people do have a degree of privacy, and we should respect that. At the same time, I also can observe, and Murray and others will attest to this, that there is genuine concern amongst some of the partners that we work with around homelessness that has been prevalent for decades, particularly in places like Wellington and Waikato.
Just that last one.
Yeah. O te kaupapa nei, kei te kōkiri mātou I raru I te kaupapa priority 1, ki ngā whānau e whai tamariki ana, tēnei wā kei te tāhuri hoki te kōkiri, kia rua ngā kōkiri, priority 1 ka tahi me ngā tamariki, ka rua ko ngā tangata takitahi, takirua rānei kaore he tamariki, and ko tōna kaupapa matua, ko tōna whakahaeretanga, kia riro mā ngā tangata pēnei Murray nei mo te Wellington City Mission me Emerge, te whakatau I te kawenga social outcomes contracting, kia hāpai hoki I tēnei hunga.
Ko wai tērā hunga, ko wai ngā tangata e whenua ana ki roto I ngā whare mo tēnei wā hoa.
Ngā whare oho tata, koia hoki te kōkiritanga, ko ngā tangata takitai, singles, takirua kaore e tamariki, ka rua, he toko maha, neke atu I te rua rau tangata ki Waikato, tai atu ki te whanganui ātara nei, engari ko tōna matua, kaupapa matua, ko te mahitahi me Wellington City Mission me Emerge, ki te whakawhiriwhiri, ki te whiriwhiri, he huarahi whai kāinga pūmau mo e ramo tangata.
He Māori e nei tangata?
Ai toko mahanga Māori. Me te mea nei ono takau pai hinati, ono takau o rau, ngā tangata katoa, e nohana ki ngā whare ohotata he Māori. Nā reira e tino ngana ana ahau ki te whakatārewa I tēnei kaupapa. Kia riro hoki mā ngā tangata Māori mai Pāke mai, aha mai rānei, te whai whare pūmau, kaua e noho ki ngā whare ohotata.
Just in English on that one.
Yeah.
Are there many Māori within that cohort?
Yeah, no, well, of the cohort living in emergency housing, approximately 60% are Māori. and actually quite a few Pacific Island whānau also, singles and couples and whānau with tamariki. So I'm very motivated and triggered to ensure that we do the best we can, not only for them, but for all New Zealanders that are living in.
60% of the cohort who are in emergency housing longer than a year, is that what you mean?
60% of the total emergency housing cohort, and I'd have to look at the numbers, but it probably will be about the same, might be a little bit more. When you go to different towns, of course, it goes up and down. So if you go to Hamilton, it's more around 80%. Ditto Rotorua, it's about 85% of whānau who are living in mainly contracted emergency housing and emergency are Māori. So it depends on where you go, but the overall numbers is about how I described it. Ka pai? Tēnā tātou. Let's get to the tiles.
Yes.
Yeah, come on. Come on in, Murray.
We'll let you go.
Oh, we can do it together?
Yeah, do it.
We'll do a
But
quick
you
one.
need to get-
Oh yeah, I better go. Yeah, we better go, Jared.
Okay,
Murray, kia ora.
thank you.
Look forward to coming back to get
Okay.
those fancy feasts.
Please do, yep, please do. Thank you, Minister. Kia ora.
Any remarks or?
Yeah, so I've been a public opponent of emergency housing for a long time, and the reason I oppose it is not because of what it does, but what it doesn't do. And for me, for a very long time, there's been insufficient support of the people in emergency housing, so they don't leave better than when they came, and that's what we're required to do. And in fact, I suspect they leave worse. And for the people who are in long-term emergency housing, it's even tougher, because where do you go from there? So this initiative gives us the opportunity to work a bit more creatively with those people, to support them to make good decisions, support them to, in a creative way, to try and find different alternatives and therefore get themselves into a different housing situation.
When you say creative way, what do you mean?
It's working very closely with them to determine what they need and what's best for them. So the idea that we can find, with intensive engagement, what are the challenges? Are they challenges around connection with whānau? Is it challenges around mental health or addiction? Is it challenges around work? And therefore, how do we support them in those things which enable them then to make good decisions going forward? Housing will not be the only solution that works for them. We know that. And putting people into permanent housing is only part of the issue.
You've been around the track for a while doing this mahi.
Yep.
Is this really a new initiative? Do you think this is something different or distinct?
Most of the time when you contract with government, they tell you what to do and you deliver on that in accordance with the contract. This is an opportunity where government have said, we trust you as a provider because of your track record to do some things a wee bit differently and to be innovative in how you approach the issues. So that is different, that is new, and I'm really hopeful that it'll enable us to make real progress with some of the people who have been in emergency housing for way too long.
What are the limitations you see with this trial?
At this stage, I don't see any limitations. We've got staff employed ready to go. We've been funded to do it. We just now need to work with the government agencies to get the information we need and then to work with these clients really intensely to find them permanent housing and to help them with the support structures around them to make good decisions going forward so that housing plus the support will give them the outcome that they deserve in the future.
Here in Wellington, what are some of the kind of wider issues that you've seen people dealing with? As in that you'd need to wrap around as well as housing?
There's a quote that says that people don't become homeless because they run out of money. People become homeless because they run out of relationships. And that's exactly what we see. Why do people run out of relationships? It's because mainly complex mental health challenges and addictions. And so they damage the relationships they have with whānau and with their wider network and with the community, and therefore they're on their own. And that constantly generates issues for them. Part of this place, Whakamaru, is an encouragement to bring communities together so that these people aren't alone and they have a community wrapped around them to do some stuff that's different and stuff that's new. So ensuring that people have a place to belong and have connections into people that can support them will ensure they get the best possible outcomes.
Awesome. Thanks, Murray.
Anything
Appreciate
else you'd
it.
like to say?
No, just new initiative. It's a chance to do some things differently. Like we're in Whakamaru at the moment. This is doing things differently as well. That's a great thing, and time will tell whether the results will deliver what we want them to be, but we're very hopeful and optimistic.